In this video today, we're going to look at the new Form 7200 for the advance payment of the employer credit due to COVID-19. More specifically, I'm going to show you 12 things you need to think about on filing the Form 7200 to get an advance credit on employment taxes for your quarterly 941. I did one of these back about 10 months ago. And so today we're looking at the new form. There's some new changes to it, but there's a lot of people that qualifies for the ERP, the Employee Retention Credit, and also for the Qualified Sick and Family Leave Credit. So these both are filed and you get the credit on the 941. So as you can see here, we've got the 941. So that's filed each quarter. But because of cash flow, if we would like to get that advanced credit that's more than our required payroll deposits, then if you look here on the screen, we then can use the Form 7200. Be sure that when you're using the Form 7200, it's the one that was revised in January of 2021. So again, what I want to do is look here at about a dozen items you need to look at from when do I qualify to use the Form 7200 and what's things I need to be aware of in doing that. In another video, I'll be doing how to prepare the 7200. And I split this into two videos. I did this originally for the 2020 7200 and it was quite lengthy, and I found that we split it up, it does much better. So let's kind of walk through this. I keep seeing references about using the 7200 to get this advanced credit. The first thing is I have to be a qualified business for the ERC or for the sick and family leave credit. And today I'm going to focus mainly on the ERC. In doing so, you either have to be partially or fully shut down, or you have to have gross receipts for your first and second quarter of 2021 to be under 80% to your prior period, in the prior compared period. And I'm not going to spend time on the ERC definitions. That's in another video. I want to spend this time is strictly on the do's and don'ts and qualifying for the 7200. So first, we're a qualified business. We've determined that for one of these credits. Secondly, we can only put on the Form 7200 qualified wages. And once in a while, you'll see me looking over here, and these are some instructions, some guidance. What I've tried to do is to simplify this. So let's look at qualified wages. In 2021, if we're the qualified business for quarter one and or quarter two, then we are allowed to have wages, the qualified wages, which means qualified employee, on wages of up to $10,000. Those qualified wages, and the reason why I say qualified wages, it actually has to be a qualified employee. And what do I mean by a qualified employee? It's wages that are paid, not including ineligible employees. And that, simply stated, is mainly related parties. So it appears, and I say it appears, we need some more guidance, but for right now, it appears to be a husband and wife will qualify. But if it's a son or daughter, brother or sister, mother or father, niece or nephew, etc., those are not considered qualified wages for this credit. But we've now determined we have qualified wages. With that qualified wage, then we get 70% of that qualified wage on each employee up to $10,000 of qualified wages. Or a better way to say it, we get 70% that's going to end up on this Form 7200 as what we're trying to say is a credit. Now, what happens is, so we're going to get up to 10,000 qualified wages each quarter. So quarter one, we get up to 10,000 per employee, we get a $7,000 credit. Quarter two, we restart over and we get up to, we can have qualified wages up to $10,000, which would give us up to a $7,000 credit per employee. And as you can see here, this adds up quite a lot. So qualified employer, qualified wages, we get 70% of that up to the first 10,000 per quarter. Step 4 is we can only file the 7200 when our credits, and for example, if we're getting the ERC credit, it's only when those credits exceed our required deposits for that period. Now in another video, when we fill out the Form 7200, you'll see the interaction of the carry forward of the 7200 on those qualified wages. Again, you only file the 7200 if your credit from qualified wages exceed your required deposits. If not, then don't file the 7200. And I have yet to see somebody that has ERC that doesn't qualify for this. There's always exceptions, okay? Now, the form, if you look back down here on my desk for a second, what we're doing on Form 7200 is we can file one of these each pay period. For example, if I pay weekly, at the end of each week, I can file a 7200, again, as long as my credit is greater than my required deposits. Then what happens is we accumulate that through the quarter. So if we're paying weekly, every week we can file a 7200. We might decide to file it once a month. Those numbers accumulate on the 7200. Then when we get to the end of the quarter, what happens is we, at that point in time, we go to our 941 and take the accumulations that we've for qualified wages and credit and for advance payments, and they get transferred over to the 941 at the end of the quarter one time. And what happens there is, what we're going to see is that they're actually going to end up going to line 13F. And I'm going to be guilty here. I'm looking for a marker. And on 13F, looking back here at my table, 13F says total advance received from filing forms 7200 for the quarter. We're then going to put that number in 13F. At that point in time, we have completed our first quarter. We've transferred the accumulation of the 7200s to the 941, and now we're ready to start a new quarter, and the 7200 form here that I'm pointing my pen to, what will happen is the numbers on part 2 will start over again for a second quarter. So that's kind of, you reconcile it, you repeat it on the 941. So again, you report it here, and then my 6th item is you reconcile it on the 941. The 7th thing I want to talk about is only small employers, those employers less than 500. Remember, in 2020, small employers are less than 100. But for 2021, small employers are less than 500. So there's going to be a lot more people qualify. They can then utilize the 7200. Another way to state that is large employers cannot use the 7200. Item number 8, if you're a small business or you're an accountant that's doing the accounting and somebody else is doing the payroll, please provide a copy of the 7200 each time to whoever the third party might be on filing the 941, unless the party doing the payroll is also doing the 7200. And that's one thing I might say here is that I talked to somebody yesterday on a conference call, and the thing about it is they talked to the accountant. They were not aware of the 7200. They talked to the small payroll company. They were unaware of the 7200. The interesting note is one of the family members actually helped the small business fill out the 7200. But the one thing I reminded him of, you've got to be sure that that's being communicated to whoever's doing the 941. Because remember, in step 5, or point 5, we said it's reconciled on the 941, and that it's also reported on the 941. So let's now move to the number 9 point. You do not file amended 7200. So let's say we make a mistake on one. You don't amend it, because that will either hold up processing your 941, or else it will actually could cause a notice on the 941. So how do we correct a 7200? It's corrected when we reconcile the 7200s for the quarter on the 941. The 10th item I want to look at is file the 7200. You can file the 7200 through the first quarter, including through April 30th of 2021. And if you qualify for the second quarter, you can then file the 7200s, and some people may file it every pay period through August the 2nd of 2021. Now again, I want to make sure we're clear on this point, is the fact that the qualified wage period for the first quarter is January 1st through March 31st. But we can file 7200s all the way through the end of April, as long as we've not filed the 941 where we reconcile. And the same thing is true for the second quarter. The same thing is that, I give a date here of August the 2nd, 2021. That's the latest date you can file a 7200, but that's also when you're filing your 941. The 11th thing I want to cover is that, remember again, I've mentioned this before, the 7200s accumulate. The 7200s accumulate. So if I do one every pay period, the very first week, I have those numbers, they and the numbers of my second week pay period, they get added together and accumulated on the 7200. When I get to the third week, it gets accumulated. So I take the prior 2 weeks and I add my qualified wages and my advances and everything on the third 7200. So you just keep building and building and building until we get to the end of the quarter. And finally, remember that qualified health expenses related to these wages also qualify. So again, in this little recap, it was when you can use the 7200, it's how to use the 7200, and in another video, I will actually do a calculation of a 7200. I really hope this helps. To many people, it's a new form. And stay tuned. Please hit the button, subscribe, and share this. And thank you, and have a great day.